Hello, welcome to your practice. I'm glad you made it. Let me know how it goes. Comments below, maybe a like for the video, maybe you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And feel free to share it, friends, family, anybody who might benefit from it. Hope you enjoy it. So first find your seat, your feet nicely planted, your sit bones nicely planted. Your hands might rest on your thighs, maybe you give your shoulders a few rolls. Eventually find a few moments of stillness, arriving into our practice, making that transition. Maybe eyes close and you bring your attention to your breathing. And notice that there's a part of your breath that's involuntary, it's autonomic. But then there's a layer of agency that you can have over your breath. A limited amount of agency, but there is some there, so you can begin to tune into that if you'd like. Maybe expanding a bit more into the inhales, maybe releasing, softening with your exhales, lengthening, deepening that breath. And you could even visualize your inhales arriving into all those edges of the body that maybe weren't available or kind of were closed up. As you breathe in, you're kind of sending air, expanding out into those parts. It's kind of, figurative, but that muscle stretch, that expansion. And then as you exhale, that return to the midline, that return to the center of the body, maybe you could call it the home place. Remind yourself of a three-dimensional breath, using your inhales to reach tall just a little bit more, and as you exhale, see if you can keep that length but feel the side body draw towards the center. And as you continue with your breath, find a balance between effort and ease here. And both can coexist. And see what the right amount of effort is for you and the right amount of ease. And the effort can be a way of keeping you engaged and present in the here and the now. The ease could be a way of making it sustainable. With your next inhale, lengthen a little bit taller. And then with eyes open or closed, on your exhale, lower the chin to your chest. Find a few rolls of your neck, right ear towards right shoulder, back through center, and then left ear, left shoulder. Moving like that at your own pace from side to side or staying A little longer on each side if you'd like. As you take your ear towards the shoulder, maybe imagining that wall behind you, taking the back of the head a bit more towards that imaginary wall. The same on the other side. And then when you've had enough, bring the chin back towards the chest, eyes open if you still had them closed, and then gently lift your chin, looking forward. Bring the shoulders all the way up by your ears, squeeze them, and then soften them all the way down. And then again, bring them up, and take them down. And one more time, bringing them up, and softening them down. Guide your left hand behind you, your right hand crosses over, a gentle twist towards the left side. And then come back through center, right hand behind you, left hand crosses, and a gentle twist towards the right. And a couple more on each side at your own pace again. Trying to pair the movement with your breath. So the way I like to do it is on the inhale, I come back through center, lengthen spine, and on the exhale, I find that twist. And one more. And then inhale, we'll meet at center, hands resting on the thighs, and lift the heels off the feet, come onto the tiptoes. Exhale, press the heels down. And then again, lift the heels. Press the heels down, maybe lift your toes and balls off the feet. And then again, onto the tiptoes, onto the heels. And a couple more, lift, lower. Last one. And lower. And then heel to toe your feet out, taking your knees wide, any amount. Heel to toe your feet back in. And then again, taking them out. And bringing them back. And another one, take them out. And bring them back. And then we'll take them out. And then from here, we're going to pivot. So that right knee is going to drop forward and down. We're turning towards the left side. Any amount. Inhale, come back through center. And pivot towards the right. And again, come back through center and towards the left. And center and to the right. And then come back through center and heel to toe your feet back in. Bring the right knee into your chest, give it a squeeze, and find some rotations through your ankle. In one direction, in the other. And then pause that, bring the hands behind your thigh, and then bend and straighten through your right knee. So you're trying to keep your thigh in the same position, and you're straightening, and you're bending. See if you can keep your torso nice and lifted, chest broad. And then when the next time that your right leg is straight, plant the heel of the foot, toes are pointing up towards the ceiling, your hands come to your hip creases, take a full breath in. And then on your exhale, hinge forward. Make that sandwich with your hips here. Your fingers get sandwiched in. So now there's contraction through your hip flexors. Notice that. And you're doing it with gravity, so it's a little bit more passive, right? You've got the aid of gravity, drawing your chest down. And take another breath. And then on your inhale, rise up. Reach your arms overhead. And as you exhale, grab a hold of your right wrist, take it up and over to the left side. Press a little bit more through your right heel and your right sit bone. Take a breath in. And a breath out. Bring your torso back through center. Slide your left hand behind you and find a twist towards the left side. Pause for a breath in and a breath out. And then as you inhale, return the torso through center. You could sweep your arms up if that feels good. And on your exhale, bring your hands to your hips. Now see if you can keep your right leg extended. Push strongly out through the heel and see if you can lift that right leg. And then bend the knee, hover your right foot. And then plant your right heel only. Plant the ball of the foot. Plant your pinky toe. And then all the way to the big toe. Nice job. Reach your arms up. Inhale. And on your exhale, side bend left. Inhale, come back through center. And exhale, side bend right. Inhale back through center. Interlace your fingers. Turn the palms towards the ceiling and give yourself a stretch. Breathe in. And as you exhale, bend your elbows and bring the hands to the back of the head. Rest the head into the hands, maybe lift your chin, take your elbows back, broaden chest, inhale. And as you exhale, elbow to elbow in front of you, round your spine any amount. Inhale, open up. Exhale again, round forward. One more, inhale, we open. And exhale, we round. On your inhale, come back through center, maybe extend your arms, and as you exhale, release your arms down by your side. Again, heel to toe your feet out, and heel to toe your feet back in. Another one, taking them out, and bringing them back. And another one out, and back. Now taking them out, pausing there, and again we're pivoting from side to side. Let's go right first, so left knee forward and down. You're rotating your torso, your hips towards the right side, and then you're bringing yourself back through center, and you're taking yourself over to the left. And then again, center, and to the right, and center, and to the left. One more of each. Remember the breath. And then the next time you come back through center, hands to your thighs and heel to toe your feet back in. Bring the left knee into your chest, give it a little squeeze, find some movement through your left ankle. Maybe a little slower, and then switching direction. And then pause that, hands behind your left thigh if they're not there already. And then keep the thigh in the same position, doesn't matter where, maybe it's a bit lower, a bit higher, but then just move through the knees. So straightening any amount and bending. And again, straighten, bend. Keep some action all the way into the toes. And then the next time that the leg is straight, we're slowly, softly lowering it down. Heel plants, toes are pointing up towards the ceiling. And again, bring your fingertips to the hip crease right there. Take a full breath in, lengthen up. And then on your exhale, sandwich those fingers. Nice, nice work. Any amount again. Breathing in here and breathing out. Another one. And last one. Inhale. And exhale. As you breathe in, rise all the way up, sweeping those arms overhead. See if you can catch your left wrist with your right hand. Pull it up and then take it over towards the right side, any amount. But then bring attention to your left heel and your left sit bone and push a little bit more into that part. Another breath in. And breath out. And then as you inhale, bring the torso through center. Release your arms. Right hand slides behind us. Left hand crosses over. This time we're rotating that rib cage towards the right side. Take a big breath into that chest, that rib cage. Out, mixture, nose and mouth. And then as you inhale, torso comes back through center, maybe your arms lift. And on your exhale, release your arms, bring them back to your hips, and we're going to try and lift that left leg straight as it is. Push through the heel, inhale, lift. Exhale, bend the knee, but hover the foot. Then lower the heel only. Then lower the ball of the foot only. Lower the pinky toe only. And then all the way to the big toe. Hands rest on your thighs, heel to toe your feet out. And then from here, stay with your feet wide, maybe feet a little in, and we're going to lift the right heel. We lower, we lift the left, we lower, we lift both, and we lower. Same thing again, right, left, both. And now left, right, both. And one more just like that, left, right, and both. Plant the heels, heel to toe your feet back in. Reach your arms wide and up, inhale. Exhale, right arm down, side bend. Come back through center. Exhale, other side. Come back through center, interlace your fingers, but maybe find the awkward one, the one that's not your default. And then palms towards the ceiling as you give yourself that stretch. Take a full breath in. And on your exhale, bend your elbows and bring the hands again to the back of the head. Take an inhale, elbows back, broaden chest, maybe looking up. As you exhale, elbow to elbow in front of us, rounding any amount, forward and down. Inhale, we open. Exhale again, forward and down. One more time. And then on your inhale, return through center, maybe arms reach up. And as you exhale, release your arms all the way down. All right, we're going to use that block. We've done this before. So we're going to use it kind of like an obstacle or a stepping point. So we're going to be working through those hip flexors. There's going to be a lifting of the legs. So I'll show you where we're going and then we'll do a few. So plant it kind of to the right, a little bit out, but not too far, because what you're going to do is you're going to come onto the tiptoes of your right foot, and then you're going to lift onto the block, tap, and then you're going to go over. And then you're going to come back, tap, and back to center. Okay, so that's going to be kind of the pattern. Your block has different heights. So if you find that, you know, that you're placing it too high, that it's making you kind of have to shift your torso to the side and make all kinds of other movements, make it a bit lower. Find a middle point. And let's try and work kind of mainly the leg, the hip flexor area. So you're not having to move the whole body. You're focusing on moving through here, right? So the rest of the body stays pretty stable. So find the height that works for you. That's what I'm kind of trying to say. Okay, so some challenge, but not so much that, you know, everything else falls apart. Okay, so when you're ready, we're going to do a few of these. Okay, so use your inhales. I like to use the inhale to lift, exhale to lower, and at your pace, but make sure that breathing is happening. If you'd like, you could bring your right hand to your right hip flexor, noticing that contraction is happening there, right? And then the other thing that you can play with as you do this is to be really precise, okay? To kind of always tap the same point. So that's going to require really slowing down and really kind of tuning in. And also the other thing that you can play with is trying to keep a constant speed, right? So that you're not kind of favoring the lowering gravity, just letting your leg drop. You're controlling that movement too. So those are things to play with. Don't get too caught up with it, but things that you can explore in your movement here. And if you've been doing this now for a whilst I'm talking, probably the hip flexors are feeling it. So it's okay. You can take a rest anytime. And then when you're ready, we'll meet with that right foot planted completely back at center, and then move the block to the out of the way for a moment. We're going to heel to toe the feet out, and then we're going to turn towards the left. So like we were doing earlier, that right knee is going to drop forward and down, and we're going to turn completely the torso towards the left side. Now, this should feel nice. So see if you can notice that. We had a lot of contraction in the front of the right hip, and now we're giving it some space. Okay, so you play here. You might send your right foot back a little bit more. You might push your right hip forward or kind of to the left side of your room, right, to the direction you're facing. Find a squeeze or some engagement through your right glute, and that's going to also help stretch out that right hip flexor. So see if you can feel some of that. And you can always also give that hip flexor a bit of a massage. So you could bring your hand, your fingers, and just give it a little squeeze, a little push. There you go. Nice, nice work. Breathing in and breathing out. Another breath in and out. Then one more here. And then when you're ready, we'll make our way back through center and then heel to toe your feet back in. So notice for a moment maybe a difference between what you're feeling in the right hip versus the left. And then we're going to give that left side kind of a bit of the same, okay? So when you're ready, the block or whatever you're using is going to come over to the left. And again, play around, try it at one height, see how it feels, and then switch, adapt. But it's going to be the same idea. We're going to come onto the tiptoes if possible, and then we're going to lift onto that block, and then over, and then return, block, and then back, center. Okay? And playing around here. Again, if the block needs to be a little lower or a little higher, feel free to change things around. If you place it at a distance that's not working, bring it a bit closer. And then you can play with the same kind of variables we were talking about on the other side. Okay? With the speed, see if you can keep a constant speed. With the precision, tapping exactly the same spot, noticing how much weight you're putting into that left foot as you tap. And maybe trying to be really light. Maybe that left hand is at the hip crease and you feel that work through that area of the body. And maybe you remember your breath. And maybe the sensations are getting a little bit stronger, right? And when you're ready, we'll meet that left foot back, center nicely planted. And maybe on this side, you felt that not only sensation is at the hip crease, right? You might have felt it all the way into the thigh, the quads, all the way almost to the top of the knee. Okay. And then from here, we'll get that stretch, just like we did on the other side. So heel to toe your feet out, and then pivot over towards the right side. So now, you're wanting space and stretch in the front of your left hip. And so maybe knee under hip, maybe sliding your left foot back any amount, but pushing your left hip forward. Find that engagement through your left glute. Maybe even you place your hand on your left glute and you feel, that there's some squeeze, a little bit more work there. Maybe left hand gives a massage to the hip flexor, maybe all the way into the thigh. And then remember when we were talking at the beginning about the hip flexor, thinking about it going thigh across the hip and into the torso. So if you think about lengthening your torso up, you're also going to stretch that front of the hip, right? So if you round it over, you're going to close it up. If you lift it through your torso and your chest, you're going to help find again that counter stretch. Give it another breath. And then when you're ready, we're coming back through center, heel to toe your feet back in. And just take a moment, your hands rest on your thighs and notice, maybe your eyes close. Maybe now your hips feel a little bit more even, maybe not. A full breath in and a full breath out. One more here. If your eyes are closed, gently open them, and then heel to toe your feet wide, but not super wide, so a little less than we were doing earlier. And then inhale, reach your arms tall. As you exhale, bend your elbows, palms facing forward, and draw your elbows all the way into your waist. Squeeze them in. Inhale, extend. Maybe maybe index and thumb touch. Exhale again, elbow squeeze in. Inhale, extend. Exhale, squeezing in. One more just like that. Inhale, reach. And exhale, squeeze in. Now on your inhale, reach. And as you exhale, right arm down, side bend. Inhale, come back through center. And left arm down, other side. Inhale, come back through center. And on your exhale, we're folding forward. So maybe your hands come to your thighs and your torso goes forward and down. Maybe then your hands slide down your shins towards your ankles and your head drops. If you'd like, block in front of you and your hands could rest on the block as you find this forward fold. Breathing in and out. Now stay in your forward fold, but bring your attention to your legs and your feet. And then see if you can push into the pinky side edge of your feet a bit more, maybe even lifting the big toe edge. And then see if your knees can drop a little bit more out to the sides. See how that feels. And take another breath in, breath out. One more here. And then we'll use the next inhale to lift through the torso. Your hands could come to your thighs, support your spine as you rise all the way up. Heel to toe your feet back in. And then from here, we'll make our way up to stand. So since we've got the block, let's all use the block and plant it between the knees. Toes are pointing forward, your knees more or less in line with your toes. Your hips in line with your knees, and then maybe using your hands to give yourself a little push up or sweeping your arms forward and up. We're rising, inhale. And then on the exhale, we're lowering. And then again, inhale and we lift. And exhale and we lower. And another one, inhale and lift. And exhale to lower. Now on the inhale, we're going to lift and we're going to stay lifted. Keep the block between your knees, keep squeezing it, and then bring hands to your heart. See if you can bring a bit more weight into the heels of the feet, maybe without losing your balance. And see if you can wiggle your toes some. And then grab a hold of your block. On your inhale, reach your arms and block up, straighten legs. And then as you exhale, right arm down and side bend. Inhale, come back through center. And exhale other side. Inhale back through center. And then on your exhale, release down. I think we're done with the block. Oh, actually, we might use it. We'll see. We might use it again. We'll see when we get down to the floor. All right. So we're going to use the back of the chair. We're going to do this from a little bit more of a standing position. And we're going to try to get to that stretch of the hip flexors again. So in front of the seat of the chair, of the back of the chair, for balance, your hands can rest on it. And then we're going to float that left leg and then send that left leg back without leaning forward with your torso. Okay, so again, think about we're trying to stretch, make space in the front of the left hip. So we're going to close up the back of the hip, the glutes are contracting, the left leg is going back behind us any amount. And then don't forget about your torso. So you want your torso to be lifting up, or the center of your chest to lift up rather than to lean forward and down. Okay. You could do toes drawing to shin or point your toes away from you. And then you could stay here or you could find a bit of a pulse. Lift and lower that left foot a few times. And then release. Bring that left foot and plant it. Exactly the same thing on the other side. So go there in your own way. Right foot back, flex or pointing away. Find that lift through your torso. Remember, if your chair, the back of your chair, the place where you're putting your hands is too low, your torso is going to be rounding forward. So you might want to find a higher place, a wall might be better, so that you can lift through your chest and really find that stretch through the front of the hip. If you'd like, find that pulse through the right leg a few times. That right glute is working. And then release, return both feet to the ground. Hands on the back of the chair. We're going to stretch the backs of the legs and the glutes. So we're going to walk the feet back. Hinge from your hips. Send your sit bones up and back. You can have your knees bent. Take a couple breaths here. And then with your next inhale, walk your feet towards the chair, once again coming up to standing position. All right, so from here, now you might want to have your chair to the side because we're going to try and lift those legs in front of us. So if your chair is in front of you, you might bump into it. So maybe side, if you've got a wall, also a wall to your side might work. So ground through your right foot, and then when you're ready, lift your left knee. So knee bent, and see if you can get your thigh any height. But then just like we do in the seated position, we're going to try and kick. So we're going to keep the thigh in the same position, and then straighten and bend. Straighten and bend. A few times here. And then if you'd like, straight to the stretch. So slide the leg behind you and stretch the hip flexor. Squeeze through the glute. For a breath in and out. And then return, left foot plants. Same thing on the right side. So when you're ready, that left foot nicely planted. We're bending into the right knee and we're lifting that right foot. Thigh stays in place, and then a few times straighten any amount, bend, straighten, bend, straighten, bend, straighten, bend. One more if you've got it. And then take that leg behind you and find that stretch for the front of the hip. For a breath in, for a breath out. And return, right foot next to the left. Nice job. Hands to the back of the chair, and again, walk your feet back. Remember, you could do this with your hands on the back of the chair. If you prefer, you could also bring your forearms to the back of the chair. And sometimes that's a little nicer on the shoulders, a bit more supportive for the torso. So you're more than welcome to choose this version. See if you can find that stretch through the backs of your legs, through the glutes. A full breath in. And a full breath out. One more here. And then with your next inhale, walk your feet back towards the chair, coming back up to standing. Give your shoulders a few rolls, your fingers a little wiggle. Okay, so one more little combination there, and we'll end in a standing lunge. So when you're ready, again, your left knee reaches up. We're going to bend and straighten a few times, just like we did before. If you're feeling adventurous here, you could keep the leg straight and then lower and lift with the leg straight, but that can it's a little taxing on the hips and the quads. And then when you're ready, we're going to take that left leg behind us. And then from here, we'll take it into our lunge. So now bend into your right knee, land on the ball of the left foot. Now see if you can use this lunge to really get a nice stretch through the front of that left hip. So make some adjustments. Maybe that right foot walks forward a bit more. You bend a little deeper into that right knee. Think about your hips going forward and down, and that squeeze through your left glute. That left heel may be planted or dropping towards the ground. And then your chest lifting, as if there was a string center of your chest and it was pulling it up towards the ceiling. Taking a full breath in and out. One more here. And last one, make it feel good. Nice work. When you're ready, stepping forward, maybe it's one step, maybe it's a few, and eventually once again standing. We'll do one more, so one more side to go. Same idea. We'll work a little bit into the hip flexors, so contraction, and then we'll stretch them out. So right knee bends, lifting the thigh, bend and straighten a few times. So holding that thigh lifted is working that hip flexor, right? It's got to hold it against gravity. Lifting and lowering is going to also work it, right? Whether lifting or lowering with the knee extended or bent. And then whenever you're ready, we're taking this into a lunge. So now we're going to give some space to that hip flexor. We're taking that right leg back. And then we're going to bend into the left knee, lower onto the ball of the right foot. Nice work, nice work. And then look for that stretch, front of that right hip, from the thigh, across the hip, into the waist. Think about your torso, finding that lift. And then think about the power of your breath here, those inhales that lift you, those inhales that expand. And then the exhales have a little bit of both, have that stability and that grounding, so some finding of that center, but also a bit of release, so some softening. A couple more breaths. And then we'll make our way back, stepping that right foot back next to the left, mountain pose. Give yourself a moment here. Once again, just checking in, noticing what sensations are happening, what they're like. And noticing maybe also your reactions to those sensations, the responses in the mind, the thoughts or stories that might come up. And then eyes open if you had them closed, and we'll make our way to chair, recliner, or floor. I'm going to give you the option here to bring your block along and to find a kind of supported bridge to stretch again, the fronts of the hips in a bit more of a passive way. On the chair in a seated position, it's a little bit trickier to do. So see what you could do again, kind of sending the leg behind her or under the chair to get that stretch. Yeah, see what you come up with, and we can troubleshoot later also if you like. But if you are coming onto the floor or onto a support for your back body, have a block or something equivalent nearby. All right, we'll find a seat and then we'll go straight onto our backs. So I'll meet you there. And then once you found yourself on your back, a few window wipers from side to side. So kind of loosening through the hips. We had kind of all the weight of the body on the legs and the hips, and now we're kind of letting those legs have less weight, less pressure. So as you bring your feet wide, and then let your knees drop from side to side, allowing now gravity to kind of take over a bit. And if it feels good to stay on one side for a bit longer, letting those knees be heavy, you could do that. And notice that in these window wipers also you'll get that stretch through the fronts of the hips. Feel that. And we do, in general, we sit quite a bit. So stretching the fronts of the hips is a nice counter to the sitting. And then bring yourself back through center, and here is where we'll find that supported bridge pose. So your block, a blanket also, maybe wrap your block with a blanket to make it a little softer. And we're going to lift the hips and slide that block right under the sacrum. So it's the back of the hips, it's not the lower back. If you're using your block again, block has different heights. So make it comfortable. So just some lift of the hips. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it should feel nice. Hips elevated, block under that sacrum, nicely supported. And then once you've got that, a few options with your legs, okay? So you could do soles of the feet together and let your knees go wide. That might feel nice. Stretch for inner thighs also, as well as the fronts of the hips. Play with the positioning of your feet a little closer or further away from your hips. That can also make a difference here. You could do feet planted and then walk your feet away from the hips, kind of lengthening your legs any amount here, maybe coming onto the heels of the feet. And then whatever you choose, stay for a little bit. Allow the body to adapt, to kind of settle for a few breaths and see how it feels. You might even add some open mouth exhales and see if that allows you to relax into it a little further. And sometimes when we feel quite comfortable and the body is in stillness, the mind gets moving. You might find yourself going to the past or the future, exploring thought, one thought taking to another and another. Nothing wrong with that, of course. But the cool thing about practice is to notice when that happens, and then to decide or to choose what to do to continue going wherever we're going with the mind, or to shift direction. Usually we're good with just going wherever the mind takes us, so you might want to practice, switching direction and bringing maybe the mind back to what's happening at this moment. The sensations in your body, the breath. A few more cycles here. And then when you're ready, if your legs were out in front of you or you had your knees wide, bring them back in. Walk your feet in towards your hips. And then press into the feet and lift your hips off the block or whatever support you were using. Slide that to the side. And now be really slow and intentional as you lower that back body back to the ground. And then once you've done that, you might feel the need to stretch the glutes, right? So we stretch front of hips, contracted back of hips, or kind of, yeah, contracted. So now you might want to stretch them. So you could bring one knee into the chest, maybe a little rock from side to side. Maybe it feels good to lift the forehead towards the knee, so some rounding. But this is going to require some work through the center of the body. And see what feels right. And then when you're ready, release this side and then do the same on the other side. The left knee comes in, little squeeze, a little rock. And again, maybe curling up if that feels good. And then releasing that, and maybe now both knees into your chest, and you let yourself rock from side to side, maybe going all the way onto one side, and all the way onto the other. And then make your way into Shavasana. So any position that's going to be conducive to stillness, to these last moments of practice. You might take a deep breath in, an open mouth exhale. Allow yourself to settle in Shavasana. As always, you could take a longer Shavasana if that's possible. If not, return your awareness to your breathing. And maybe make that breath just a bit more obvious. And then allow your breath to inform some movement back into your body. And taking your time, appreciating the transitions is also part of your practice. Making your way up into a seat, and we'll meet there to end practice together. And you might choose to rest your hands in your lap. You might choose to bring them to your chest. And we'll take a moment to acknowledge with appreciation the practice itself. To also acknowledge with appreciation ourselves and our own practice. To remember with appreciation all those who have practiced with us. And to acknowledge also with appreciation all who have made it possible. And we end with a word that means that the light in me recognizes and honors the light in you. Namaste.